All right. Welcome back to another episode of Tuxedo Time, where we wear tuxedos, and it is time, podcast edition.
This is a podcast where we have casual, unfiltered conversations about video production, life as a creator, and whatever the other thing is that we talk about.
Anything we want to talk about, because it's our podcast.
That's right.
Loose spinoff of our YouTube channel. And what are today's topics, Peckham?
Well, today, is this okay? Is this close enough?
Yeah.
Now it is. Okay. Well, today's topic, a couple of weeks ago, we finally posted our full basement studio tour on our main YouTube channel. If you want to check it out, it's in the show notes.
Wait a second. We've been doing this podcast for 2 years now?
Yes, and we've also been working on the studio for 2 years.
So we've been working in the studio pretty much just as long as this podcast has been in existence.
Pretty much.
Interesting.
Yeah. We've had this corner done for a long time. This was the first corner that we finished.
Yes, for the podcast.
And we finished the drone factory pretty early on too.
Correct. Yeah. But the rest of the studio, we just dragged it out.
Yeah.
But it kept morphing a little. You know, it's like you kind of kept having more ideas, and then it kept snowballing a little bit.
Well, yeah, that. And like also it was like, oh, we want to make this slat wall. And then it was like, oh, we have to make a slat wall. And then we just put it off for months. And it was like, okay, finally it's time to make a slat wall. And then we just did it. And then it's like, oh, we got to make a wall on wheels. And it was like, oh. And then Heading East came, we're like, we should probably make that wall on wheels.
So that we could use it for the intro segment or the cutaway map segment.
Yeah. I have had part of the trim cut and laid in place over there for a year and a half and just never went and got the air nailer to stick it in.
Finally, I did it for you.
You did. Thank you. Actually, those backdrop stands that we mounted, we've actually had those since we moved into this house.
Oh, have we?
Yeah, because I ordered them for our old
upstairs.
filming room. Yeah, and just never.
And then just never installed them. You're like, well, I'll just put them in the actual studio then.
Yeah, they just never did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So today, while I was editing the basement tour video, we wanted to keep the video pretty short, and we talked about a lot of stuff that actually got cut out of the video. So I thought, oh my God, we have a podcast. The reason why we started this podcast was to talk about things more in depth than what we can on our YouTube channel. So Tuxedo Time, Studio Edition.
Podcast Edition.
Studio edition. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. But first, before we get into it, I have an exciting announcement.
What is your exciting announcement?
Over the Christmas, I filmed a Skillshare Originals course.
See, I already knew that.
Yeah, you already knew that, but you guys didn't know that, probably. So this podcast is not sponsored by Skillshare, but I wanted to share with you guys that we just released a Skillshare Originals course on how to find your style in the edit. So it was me.
It was her. It was her.
Talk about editing and sound design, but finding your style within the edit. Talk a lot about planning and pre-production, finding your tone, and art directing your own videos. So I'm very excited. We never really talked about a lot of the topics that we talk about in the Skillshare Originals on our channel. There's a couple of overlapping concepts, but a lot of it we haven't really talked about on the channel.
Yeah, I think it's a unique video series, or I guess class in a sense, because it really draws on sort of your inclination to brand things.
Yeah, for sure.
And kind of is like a little peek into what goes on in that little bean head of yours.
Yeah. It's very heavy on like the style, the, tone and stuff like that. And I'm pretty stoked on it. So if that sounds like something you got, I feel like I didn't sell it very well.
I think it's fine. Yeah. I think that it is uniquely positioned because I think a lot of people, you said it in the course yourself, it was essentially like a lot of creators are in this game and it's just a saturated market. So a way to set yourself apart is finding your unique style. And I think your course does a really good job about what goes through your head to find our style.
Yeah.
And how you essentially have created this brand and sort of how you started, because that is a daunting task for people who aren't, graphic designers, who don't have video experience or don't have any experience at all, let alone how are they going to set themselves apart. So I think it does a good job into going through your process and into your mind and see what's going on in that little crazy head of yours.
Thanks, babe. You did a better job of explaining it than I did.
There you go. So check it out. We're going to leave a link in the description box if you want to check that course out. You can sign up for Skillshare for free, and you can get the course. And if you just want to see the course, you can cancel your subscription. So you can essentially get this course for free.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Or if you want to like dive into learning about more things, you know, think of it as a business expense.
Investing in yourself.
Really like Skillshare. Well, we did a sponsored video with them, but this podcast isn't sponsored. But I honestly do love the product, and that's why I was so excited when they reached out to do this course, because we've been talking about doing a course for a long while, and it was a perfect excuse to kind of get our feet wet with it. But then also, like, I've been watching Skillshare over the last couple of years. I took like a documentary making course, and Dan Mace's course, and there's a couple other ones that I watched. There's some interior designer that I watched, like very useful, just endless amount of content there.
Yeah. So check it out. Link in the description box.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about this studio. If you guys are watching this podcast on YouTube, you obviously recognize this set from all of our videos. And this is actually one of 5 filming sets in our entire home studio, which we basically took our unfinished portion of our basement and turned it into an epic home studio. So the space is a mix of finished corners, like finished design style spaces, and utility. So we didn't fully finish out the whole space. The ceiling is still open, and we left the concrete raw floors. If you want to watch the entire video like tour, we'll leave it in the show notes, beckyandchris.com/podcast, whatever episode number this is. But yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit more in depth about some of the choices that we made and kind of what it takes to plan out and design a home studio, whether you're just doing it in an extra bedroom or corner of your basement, or even taking your entire basement, if you're allowed to, and converting it into a little YouTube space.
Yeah, I think that most people who see the video, well, first of all, anybody who's seen all these little sets in our videos probably are going to be surprised about the orientation of how these sets are all in the same room.
Yeah.
They probably think, oh, I didn't realize that was the same room as this. So it's just one big open space.
Right.
And we've got basically 4 corners of the room and a wall that has a backdrop stand on it.
Yeah, we basically shoved each set into a corner and left the middle portion of the basement kind of like open so we could move lights around and kind of have like a working area. When you're building out a studio, you don't want to jam pack your floor space full of furniture, because you want to be able to have the freedom to move lights around and set up different types of shots. And, you know, the idea is to have space to do that, but then also have these little polished corners where it makes filming really accessible because everything is already set up.
Yeah. And also we realize this is a very large space.
Yeah. We're very, very grateful to have this amount of space in our house to be able to do this with.
Yeah, exactly. And especially for, if someone has rented space, then they're obviously not going to have this much free space, but all the concepts in the studio, in the video that we were just talking about, I mean, you can apply to any room that you have.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be a permanently set up space either. It can be, if you live in a single bedroom apartment, maybe it's just a matter of setting your room up for filming mode, but then tearing down your lights.
Yeah.
But using the same concepts of, okay, this is how we're going to adjust the space to work as a studio. And you realize that, studios, there's nothing magical about a studio.
No.
It's just a space that you film in.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's just interiors.
Yeah. I think too, like another interesting idea just popped up. Like you're talking about making a studio in your bedroom. Like you could almost even convert your closet into a studio in your bedroom. And then suddenly you pop a light up, you open up the closet, and there's your background with like everything in there. And like that's your background to film against. So you just close the door and then it's gone, which is pretty cool. Or even if you have just like natural light, you could do that, throw a few practicals on in the background.
Yep. That's why the number 1 best performing video on our channel is turn your bedroom into a home studio.
Oh, I bet it is. Because it's relatable, right?
I think we made it like 2018, and that to date is the most popular video by views.
It's the one and only video on our channel that's ever gotten over 1 million views.
Yeah, it's at like 1.3 million, I think now.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because like a lot of us are starting out with what we have, you know what I mean? Well, I say us, so we've been doing this for 6 years, but we're still filming in our home. We're not ready to move on to the big bad studio yet.
I don't think that has to be the natural progression, though.
I don't think so. I think once you start adding employees, that kind of makes sense. But for us, it doesn't right now.
Fair enough.
Yeah. when you start having employees and you need extra office space, I mean, like, to have people come here and work, it just doesn't make sense. This is a basement studio. There's no windows, and it's not a comfortable working environment for day-to-day, like, editing office life. For studio, it works out perfectly because you have 100% control of the light.
Yeah.
And so while it might be uncomfortable to come down here all day long when it's beautiful and sunny outside, it's real great when it's beautiful and sunny outside and you need to control the light.
Yes, exactly. You don't have to have blackout shades in every single window.
Right. Exactly. So we're going to talk through the studio a little bit. If you want to check it out, like I said, the link is in the description box. There's also a number of images on
or in the show notes
blog. Yeah, I'll leave a link to our blog post with the before and after pictures of the space, but I'll leave a couple in the show notes as well. So the basement is a portion of the square footage of our house. So the drone factory is included in that. And you kind of come in and it's like one big, large open space with sort of like a little mezzanine hallway moment. Like you walk into a small kind of triangle. And then to the left, there's a big room for the drone factory.
Isn't a mezzanine between floors?
I think you're right. Foyer, hallway. There's a room. There's a room with a hallway. And
a skinny little connecting device.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. So there's basically, you walk into a room. To the left is the drone factory. To the right is the studio.
This is the garage here, right?
No.
Well, you can either go left to the drone factory.
Yes.
Or right
to the studio.
Which is underneath our living room.
Correct. Yes. So we kind of broken the space up into a few different uses. When you come into the studio originally, you kind of end up in the small room. So we cladded out the walls with OSB, which we painted black. We didn't want to get into doing drywall. We thought OSB would be a fun texture change.
Yeah. And so for people who don't know what OSB is, it's basically like kind of like particle board. Just a bunch of wood chips that are sandwiched together with glue.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cheap alternative for house sheathing. Less expensive than plywood, but less durable. It's less durable than plywood, but it's cheaper.
Correct. Yeah.
But it has that kind of characteristic, kind of rough texture to it, and it creates this a bit of a kind of a look, you know.
It does, yeah. So we did it in the drone factory with the oversized pegboard. We
painted it black.
So we copied that in the hallway, and then we took our walnut wall hooks, all 6 of them, and hung them on the wall. And then hung our favorite camera bags there for quick access. So
our walnut wall hooks, they are available for purchase. We will leave a link in the show notes. It's our second product in our home decor line, so check it out. If you guys want something a little custom in your house, solid walnut hooks, we love them.
Yes, we do. Also, you don't need a lot of knowledge to install those. It comes with instructions. You just need like a drill, screwdriver, a level, pencil. That's it. So as you walk in, you kind of get greeted with these large powder-coated metal shelves. And they're utility shelves. They're open. They're kind of messy. They just store all of our gear, our little DIY backdrops that we have, our alien bees, which are our flashes, our strobes that we've had for like 15 years. Still recommend them to anybody looking for flashes for photography. And then as you keep going right, you enter into the studio. So there's a cinder block wall there. We left them open. We hung up some IKEA frames with some prints from Cold Island in there and just stole some dressers from our house and used that as storage and then kind of styled the top.
Yeah, the dressers were left over mostly from our apartment living days.
A lot of things in the studio were left over. This entire set for the podcast, the navy couch, the walnut table, the rocker that you're in.
This is literally our living room from the apartment.
Exactly.
From 2 apartments.
Yeah, for sure. This navy couch actually came with us from Vancouver.
Yes.
And it still looks pretty good, I think. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was a shame to not be able to use it somewhere.
Yeah. It was kind of sitting in another room in our house, and we were thinking about selling it. And I was like, well, it's such a great couch, but it's a loft-sized couch. So it's apartment size. It's smaller scale, smaller width than like a normal couch.
See, I didn't even know that there were different sizes, like apartment size versus regular size furniture.
You never notice when we'd be cuddling on the couch and neither of us really fit on it together?
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess I realized deep down in my subconscious that yes, there's some like furniture that's bigger than others, but I never really thought in my mind, oh, this is apartment size and this is regular size. And it makes sense.
Yeah, you can get smaller stuff that is sized for smaller spaces. You know, it's funny when I think about this couch and I think about Vancouver. I don't remember this couch feeling so small.
It's because you didn't have a large full-size sectional to compare it to.
Yeah, that's true. We had a 400 square foot apartment that was very small.
Yes.
And this filled the entire living room, this couch.
I think we remember that. Like, I remember that room being larger than it is.
Yeah, me too.
Just because that's all we knew.
Yeah. So for those of you guys listening, we have a loft-sized couch in the studio. It's navy velvet with walnut legs. And it's a couch with a chaise on it. So it's like half couch, half chaise.
It's like a sectional.
It's like a sectional, but, well, a chaise is like a couch with an ottoman attached to it.
Sure.
So not a sectional where like the other side has a back.
But it makes an L shape, kind of.
Right. So when this couch was kind of floating around, I didn't really want to get rid of it because the cool thing about this couch is that you can change where the chaise part is. It can be on the left or the right.
Because it actually is just an ottoman.
It is, but the cushion is
one continuous thing that you can flip over.
Right. So it makes this couch incredibly versatile for any space because you're not glued to having the chaise on the left. It can be on the right as well.
This is a Gus couch?
This is a Gus Modern couch. Yeah. So I like that. I like the ability to be able to do that. And I haven't really seen a lot of other couches that can kind of do that. So I was like, you know what? Let's build the studio around this couch. And at first I was like, well, navy, I'm kind of over the navy. But then I was like, I think navy can still work. Like, I think if we put it in like a dark space with neutrals, I think it will look good. And I love it.
Yeah, no, it works well.
Yeah.
So moving on from this part of the space, because I feel like the people have seen this space. Anybody who watches this podcast,
yeah, have seen it. By the way,
very familiar.
One of you guys were asking in one of our earlier episodes if we were going to, or maybe it was on the new Instagram account, if we were going to do a video about our podcast setup. We're going to be, either it's up now or we're going to be posting it soon about this specific set, what we're using to record this podcast, how we're filming this podcast. So if you want to check that out, that's on our main channel. I'll leave it in the show notes.
Yeah, a lot of people are curious about the tech.
Yes.
The tech side of it.
Yeah, it's all there. Okay, so moving on to the charge wall.
The charge wall. Yeah, the charge wall. Did we talk about it in the video or about anything about it?
Not really.
Okay, so the charge wall, interestingly enough, you invented this concoction upstairs.
I don't think I invented it. I've seen like other types of walls that are similar to that.
Well, you surely put on the Moody Dark.
I put a Moody Dark stamp on it for sure.
Becki and Chris stamp of approval on it.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, I built out a matte black charge wall in our previous filming room, which was just a bedroom. Mm-hmm. And I posted it on Instagram and I didn't make a video about it and people loved it. And so
that one post did very well.
It did very well.
To the point where other people were tagging you in charge walls they made exactly the same. And you're like, shit, should have done a video about this.
Yeah. So I made an Instagram story about it. So I pinned that to our story highlights. And I was like, shit, I think this would be like a good video to make because I think it'd be useful and I think it would do really well. So I remade one down here and the video did pretty well.
Yeah.
So the charge wall you guys can't see it because it's behind me, but it's essentially 2 black metal pegboards with just some metal baskets attached. And there's like a power bar attached there and just some like ways to store cables and lights.
But it's arranged nicely in like a very pleasing sort of spezzatura way.
Yes. Yeah. It's exactly spezzatura. Learned that word recently. It's a new one for my vocab. Kind of like waxes and wanes.
The spezza waxes and wanes. Yeah. It's kind of, it looks a little bit haphazard, but it's still almost gridded. So it's kind of like controlled chaos. I'm looking at it right now, trying to describe it.
Yeah. I threw a light on it to highlight it. And so it's even more obvious now.
There you go. Yeah. So no, I like it. I think it's a nice touch and it's very functional too.
It's a great way to organize your batteries and things that you're charging that you need to access on the fly. That's not like hidden away.
Right.
But that also doesn't look like complete chaos. Like there's some planning to it. Yeah. And then below that, we have that cabinet from IKEA that we...
that cabinet's been with us since
Vancouver. Since our apartment.
Our apartment here.
Yes. Yeah.
That was the coffee station?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was, first of all, it held all of my hard drives in my office first. Then
Your orifice?
My orifice. And then I changed everything around and made it my coffee station.
Right.
Because, I can't keep a room one way for longer than a year.
No, that's true. That's true.
I get sick of it and got to move shit around.
Yep.
So we added a little clothing rack down here in the studio because, surprise, surprise, we bulk film everything, pretty much. Chris works a full-time job outside the house. I do YouTube full-time, which is why sometimes you see me on the YouTube channel alone. What's that blue light?
What blue light?
That blue light that's right there.
I don't know, but it's recording, I promise.
Bluetooth. Something about Bluetooth.
Oh, maybe there's a phone paired to it. It says it's recording, so look, this is my job. One job. Push the record button on the podcast machine.
Yeah. So we added a clothing rack. It's funny because like you don't really know what you need in a studio space until you start using a space and you realize, oh, you know what would be really handy? A lint roller.
Yeah.
Or like you film a video and you're like, oh, wow, I had like 1,800 hairs attached to my black blouse.
But you know what's easy to add? A lint roller after the fact.
Yeah.
You know what's really crappy though is if you say renovated a whole space, i.e. your kitchen.
Oh God, yeah.
And then you did the wrong layout or you put something in the wrong spot that's structural. That's problematic.
Yeah. It's funny when it comes to renovations, you almost want to live in the space and see how everything flows before you renovate it.
Yeah.
I'm glad we did that with our kitchen before we start the renovation because I know exactly what we need and what does and doesn't work in that space.
Yes.
Yeah. So we added a clothing rack because I think the first time I realized that we needed one was when we started our partnership with Cuts and they sent us a bunch of stuff and we were making an Instagram story. And I was like, I have nowhere to hang. I think we had like 3 t-shirts, a sweater, and something else. And I was like, I have nowhere to put these. Like that isn't the floor where they're not going to get like dusty and wrinkled. So I had to like set up a backdrop stand and hang them on the backdrop stand. And I was like, I think a clothing rack would probably be good here. So we got a small one and it's black with like a little wooden dowel and there's like nice black hangers on it. It is. Yeah. I got a nice looking one. And that's been helpful just to have there. Like when we did the Skillshare class, we shot in like 2 separate scenes. So I brought down a couple of options, hung them up. And we had a couple of people here. We followed COVID protocols and everyone was wearing masks and got tested and everything, which gave me a lot of peace of mind. But I just had my options hung there. It was
also like pre-Omicron.
It was pre-Omicron, yeah. And the options were just hung there. It was nice to have them out of the way while people were kind of sitting around. They weren't just like in the way.
Yeah.
So that was super handy.
And we did that Cuts ad that used a lot of different clothes. Like we had all these different outfits for me.
Yes, we did. We had like 3 outfits. Like, so the premise of the ad was like, okay, Cuts like did this thing. And so we had the bags. And so Chris would be wearing an outfit and we'd take the bag with the garment in it and throw it at his chest. And then as the bag would hit his chest, his outfit would change.
Right.
And so we had 4 complete outfits that were different, which included like the Cuts shirts and or hoodie.
Yep.
Plus,
speaking of which, wearing it right now, not sponsored by Cuts right now, but
wearing the Cuts
if you like this t-shirt, follow the link in the show notes.
Yes.
And you can check the Becki and Chris discount.
Yeah. I'm not wearing Cuts right now. I'm wearing Buffalo Made Co. because I thought we were working on projects.
There you go.
Yeah. So we had like a bunch of outfits. So it was just like, we had a leather jacket down here and a denim jacket. And I think we had a hat and all the sorts of stuff. And it was just like everywhere. It was a mess. So the clothing rack was key. Another thing we added to the space was this utility cart that's on wheels. It's a metal utility cart.
What's up with you and things on wheels?
Key.
The cart on wheels. Cow.
Cart on wheels. Listen, studio, you want to be able to move shit around.
That's true. Yeah.
Wheels. And you're doing it solo. Like me.
Yeah, and you got light stands on wheels, Laos.
No, I do actually. I have 2 light stands on wheels. The utility cart right now is holding an old Apple display, which, by the way, those VESA mounts, what are they called? VESA?
Yeah, VESA, whatever.
Fuck, they're the worst.
I think they're only the worst for that particular monitor because the monitor has a spring-loaded mechanism.
Yeah.
Where it mounts, screw mounts onto the mount. As soon as you take it off, it just goes like this.
Yeah, this display is from like 2015 or 14 or something.
Yeah.
So it springs out. So sorry, continue.
So as soon as you disconnect the plate from it,
it springs.
It springs like into the body of the monitor.
And there's like 18 screws in it.
Yeah. It's difficult. I remember it was difficult when I had to take off the bracket and then install the wall mount.
Yeah. And
then you had to do the opposite of that, take off the wall mount, install the bracket, the stand again.
I thank God for you two because I looked up a bunch of videos. The guy was like, "Yeah, so this is really tricky. So just keep jamming the card in there, and then suddenly it will just unlock." And I was like, "Cool." And he was right. I would just like jam for like 5 minutes, and finally, like minute 7, it was like click, and I was like, "Jesus." Anyway, what I wanted to do, because I had so much fun filming the Skillshare course that I want to make my own course.
Oh.
So I like the idea of having the Slat Wall set, which is where we film the majority of our YouTube videos on our main channel. We'll talk about that in a second. I like the idea of being able to bring that monitor over there and set up more of like a desk office scenario, because obviously we don't edit down here. Our office is in a different space. So the utility cart, once that monitor is off, which for Skillshare it was on the desk, the guy who came to film, my friend Greg, was able to use the utility cart as intended.
As a utility cart.
As a utility,
put all his stuff on it.
He put his laptop there, all his reference materials were there, and he was able to kind of move it around depending on where the cameras were. So I was like, oh, this is like perfect. Perfect use case scenario for utility cart. Okay, so let's talk about the Slat Wall set.
The Slat Wall?
And go.
The Slat Wall?
The Slat Wall. It was a real skank to make.
It was. Yeah.
Fuck.
They always are, though.
Every DIY project is always.
Especially the slat walls.
Slat wall.
This is not the first slat wall we've made.
No, it is not.
We're going to link to a blog post about a slat wall we made in St. John's, in our home in St. John's.
It was a beautiful slat wall, the original one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
It was a real bitch. Poplar slats that were all hand stained, all hand sanded, all hand treated, and all hand stained.
Yeah,
and then all hand clear coated.
This was early on in my woodworking days.
Was it around the same time where we used a circular saw to cut drywall?
Affirmative.
Oh, fuck.
It's like I was in a Coke den. It's like, pff.
We're like, this isn't how you're supposed to cut drywall.
Yeah, it's like, oh, score and snap. We've come a long way. Everyone's got to start somewhere. But this was like, this was early on. So I assumed, because you could buy like pine was kind of like your basic woodworking project material, your sort of entry-level wood.
Yep.
And pine stained kind of really heterogeneously.
And pine is also extremely naughty. Naughty pine.
Oh, you're so naughty.
Oh.
Yes. And
it's not the best wood for like finished
project. Yeah, it didn't have the look that we were going for. It was a little bit more country. You know, it has its places, but not
but not for our style.
Not for like a sort of like we're going for this like dark, high-end, luxury, moody bedroom or living room, I should say.
What is it called? Minotti? Was that the brand?
Minotti was the brand.
Yeah. We found this picture of the Minotti, which is a furniture store, very high-end, their showroom. And they had the most stunning furniture that we could only wish to ever afford.
And they had a vertical slat wall.
And we were like, oh, this is that was the inspiration image for the entire living room.
And it was probably something like walnut.
I think it was walnut, and then eventually they like did gray ones, but
yeah. So we wanted this like dark wood slat wall. So what we did was I went to a local mill and had them basically. I just purchased like hundreds of linear feet of poplar 1x2
because we wanted the walnut look, but we couldn't afford walnut.
Right.
It was
so
way too expensive.
Basically, I just went with the the cheapest wood I could find that wasn't pine. That was better, quote unquote, than pine.
Yeah, that had like some kind of green that wasn't extreme, like it wasn't knots. There was grain texture.
Yeah. So anyway, I bought hundreds of feet of this of poplar 1x2, and then I did a stain test, which I always recommend. Always do a stain test. At least like even though we were early on in our woodworking career, I still had enough wherewithal to do a stain test before I just jumped in and started trying to stain it all.
Yeah.
And oh my God, the poplar does not stain well. It stains just as poorly as pine because
it's so spotty.
It's the pore size is highly variable. So some parts of it you'll get really large pores that suck up the stain, and other parts you'll get really tiny pores that don't suck the stain up nearly as well. So you get just like this splotches, and the stain just does not look natural. Does not look good. So long story short, I did a bunch of tests, and I found finally that using shellac to essentially coat the wood to basically pre-fill all of the pores with the shellac and then lightly sand it by hand and then use a gel stain that essentially more or less sits on top of the shellacked wood. It doesn't really penetrate it the same way, like it doesn't go into the pores, but at least it's even then.
Yeah.
And then since it didn't penetrate it as well, I had to stain it twice because to get the wood as dark as I wanted. And then I had to clear coat it a bunch of times. So by the time you factored in like sanding it, poplar, light sand over the poplar, gel stain ×1, gel stain ×2, clear coat. It was like 7 or 8 steps.
Yeah.
But hundreds of linear feet of poplar all by hand. So I was like, it was extremely labor intensive.
It turned out so good though.
But it looked nice.
It did.
Yeah. I was actually very happy. That was probably to date has been one of my favorite projects.
From that house?
Yeah.
We did a lot of DIY projects, and every project was that DIY because we couldn't afford to hire anybody and we couldn't afford to buy it. So we made it.
So learning now that poplar is not really a stain, something you're supposed to stain. It's more of a paint grade wood.
Yeah.
Allegedly. I still don't know a whole lot about woodworking.
Poplar looks nice.
It does look nice. Yeah.
It got a bit of a green hue to it, but the green pattern is beautiful.
Well, it depends on if it's the heartwood or the sapwood.
Right.
So, one of them's pink, kind of more of a magenta-y pink, and one of them's more of a greenish hue to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, it's not a bad looking wood. But for this project here in the studio, we knew we were going to paint it. So we went cheap, and just used MDF. And
how did that turn out for you?
Well,
voice crack. Oh, well.
Well.
Would you have done it differently this time if you had to redo it?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't even know. I wouldn't have not done it the first time, but I wouldn't do it again.
Yeah. So what we ended up doing was getting full sheets of MDF. And then
1/4 inch MDF. Flimsy stuff, just to act as a backer board.
Correct. Yeah. So we got 1/4 inch MDF, and then we got 3/4 inch MDF. So we had the 1/4 inch for the backer board, and then we had the 3/4 for the slats. And the plan was to cut down the MDF, the 3/4 inch MDF, into like 1.5 inch slats. Mm-hmm. Then we would affix those to the 1/4 inch MDF, and then they'd go up in panels. Yep. So we weren't attaching the slats directly to the drywall in case we wanted to remove or move the slat wall in like a couple of years.
Now, in hindsight, it would have been just easier to attach the slats directly to the wall.
Yeah.
And then just spray it all as one.
Yeah.
But the thing about MDF, and in hindsight, what I probably would have done is use poplar for this.
Yeah, I was just thinking poplar would have been the perfect paint grade wood because the knots aren't overly visible.
Right. And when you cut MDF, it creates that it turns it into a fuzzy sponge, which becomes extremely bumpy and textured when painted because it sucks the paint up and like bloats, right?
Right. So we had to treat the MDF with a sealer.
Right, exactly.
Which was another extra step.
Yeah. So
this wall is probably bigger than the slat wall in St. John's.
And it's probably about the same size. It's actually probably about the exact same size.
Yeah.
Anyway, and also we wouldn't have run into the issue with the air vent going on the top.
Right.
Because we had to have the slats not go all the way to the top of the wall,
right?
Because there's an air vent that goes up. We weren't able to fit the panels up.
Yeah, we made videos about all these projects, by the way. So they'll all be in the show notes.
If you want a blow by blow trials and tribulations of making the slat wall, we'll leave that video in the show notes.
Yeah, but we painted it all out matte black, and I'm pretty pleased with how it looks. I think it looks fantastic on camera.
Yeah, I think it looks good too. I'm happy with how it looks.
Yeah, I am too. And then we hung some pendant lights there. They're paper lights. So there was a video in which I had put aperture B7Cs inside, which are like light bulbs made for practical lights for video. Mm-hmm. They don't flicker. You can change like the color, temperature, and the actual color. They're fantastic. So
as opposed to like hue lights, which are the Philips hue lights that you buy, at any big box store, which are a fantastic product for use at your home.
Yes.
But filming with them on anything other than the full bright setting,
they flicker.
They flicker and they make lines because they're LEDs.
Yeah.
They're LEDs that are not made to not flicker.
Yeah.
On camera.
Right. So
they don't flicker in real life though. Like
no,
to your eyes, they don't look like they ever flicker.
No, they look great to your eyes.
But to the camera,
they do flicker.
Camera tells no lies.
It's true. So I put the B7Cs in there, and then I got a little bit concerned because the way these pendant lights that I have in the slat wall set are like pendant lights for your house, not for a studio. And the way they're set up inside, well, first of all, the outside is like this almost like origami paper lantern. So the paper, first of all. And then inside, the pendant light kind of goes inside the paper shade. And there's this plastic like nest thing that goes over. I guess it's for like the light fixture or the light bulb goes inside this like plastic nest almost. And then the paper shade goes around it. So I'm assuming that the plastic thing is there to prevent the light bulb from touching the paper so it's not a fire hazard. But the shape of this plastic nest that's inside that the light bulb goes inside of, when the B7Cs were in there, it was just like they just fit. Like the plastic nest touched the B7Cs, and the B7Cs get hot when they're on, just like any other light. And
I mean, if it's made for an incandescent light bulb that gets hotter than those,
it would probably be fine.
It's probably fine.
Yeah. The other reason why I didn't put the aperture lights in there is because the aperture lights, before I had the Sidus Link app and all of the other B7Cs programmed, you had to turn them off manually.
Right.
Which meant touching the paper lantern every time, opening it up, turning off the light, and then closing it. Yeah. And I didn't want, like, every time you touch paper, like it gets like wrinkled up and fucked up, and then your like finger grease and stuff gets on it. So I was like, you know what? This isn't worth it. I'm just going to put hue lights in there.
And we never use those lights on color mode.
We don't.
They're always on just like bright
daylight.
White.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's fine the way it is.
Yeah.
Plus those lights are better used elsewhere too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And all of the other lamps where you can't really see them. So we talked about this set, the podcast set. We talked about the Slat Wall set. So that's 2 of 5.
Well, we talked about the Drone Factory.
We talked about the Drone Factory, which is 3 of 5, to be fair. So set 4 in the studio is these wall-mounted paper backdrops. So we bought these Impact wall-mounted backdrop hangers from BH. Impact, the brand, makes a lot of very affordable studio equipment.
Yeah.
They're a little bit on the cheaper side.
100%.
Yeah.
They're made of plastic, so they're flimsy.
Well,
right?
the brackets aren't made of plastic. They're made of metal. But like the chains are made of plastic, and like the pieces that go inside the paper backdrops are plastic.
Right. And the roller mechanism is plastic.
Yeah.
So it works.
Budget for sure.
It is, yeah. But I mean, for the amount of times that we're going to be using it, I mean, we're not like a daily studio here where we're pulling backdrops down and it's only us using it. It's not like it's a studio that's rented out to people who are going to be harder on their gear per se.
Exactly.
So it serves our purpose.
Yeah.
And they're small little backdrops. So it's not like we need a massive heavy duty piece of equipment.
Yeah. For home studio, it works out perfectly.
Yeah.
I think if I had my time back, I probably would have gone with the wider paper backdrops. But with that said, we don't really use them a lot for backgrounds for our videos. They're more so like if we're going to do a quick headshot for something or product photography, or we want to do like get back and zoom in and get a close shot, or have them as backdrops in a larger kind of BTS type set,
right,
where you can see the lights and stuff.
Kind of has that behind the scenes look.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're pretty great for that. I just got the paper backdrops from BH. They're like the Savage brand. They come in tons of different colors. Savage boy. So that was like a pretty recent addition.
So that's 4 out of 4 sets.
4 out of 4 sets.
4 to 5. Sorry.
4 to 5. And the 5th one.
Yes. Is the wow.
That stands for on wheels.
WOW, the wall on wheels.
Yeah.
Wall on wheels.
Not on wheels. Wheels.
Will Wheaton.
What's Will Wheaton from?
I think it was from a Family Guy reference.
Will Wheaton.
But he's the, is he a comedian?
I don't remember.
I think he's a comedian. Anyway. Yeah, so the wall on wheels is, we made a whole video about this, so we're going to link that in the show notes as well. It is basically a standalone divider wall. We had to figure out a way to partition off this part of the unfinished basement from all the utilities, like the furnace and things, hot water heater, etc. And what better way to do it than a wall on wheels?
Yeah. Perfect. One side is covered with the black painted OSB to match the Drone Factory and the hallway where all of our bags are. There's a little bit of a gallery wall there, just pretty simple with the Oxford pendants. But then the other side is that wall that we talked about you've seen it in the Heading East set if you watch this podcast on YouTube. The back of that wall can transform depending on what project that we're working on. So that's kind of the idea. We like the idea of being able to paint it, stick stuff to it, hang stuff off it, and be able to patch it up and then flip it around and have it face the unfinished portion of the basement.
Yeah. So if you flip that wall around right now, you'd see the Heading East set.
Yeah, the map. The map, which will probably change in a couple of months depending on what project we're working on next. Yep. Who knows?
There you go.
Looking at the studio as a whole, is there anything that you would do differently or change, or that you like anything on your wish list for next time?
I don't know. I didn't really have anything on. I kind of just went along with what your ideas were.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you knew best. You're the one who's going to be using it all the time.
Right.
Would I have changed anything? No, I don't think so. I mean, outside of anything massively structural, like higher ceilings is always a benefit in any studio.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is what it is down here, right?
For sure. Yeah.
You get what you get.
I think we worked with what we got. We left the ceilings open, so we had like a little extra cavity space to shove lights up there. But
I mean, luckily enough, we still have 8 usable feet.
Yes.
To the joists above.
Yeah. which is great because some basements don't even have that height ceiling. There's a couple of things that I wish, like, I think if I was to say, like, what's your ideal kind of studio setup, I definitely think that it would be nice to have natural light with blinds on a remote blackout shade. So you could hit a remote and the shades come down and completely block it out. So you have the light control, but you could have natural light.
Now you're talking about the penthouse studio.
I'm talking about the penthouse studio.
This is the penthouse studio, not the basement studio.
With like the 20-foot ceilings and like the floor to ceiling windows.
Just a glass atrium.
Yeah. Gosh, one can only dream.
There you go.
Who knows? Maybe one day. I think what would be really cool would be to have, like, I think with the type of content that we make, you almost want to have like a big room industrial type studio. Almost doesn't really work for us. Mm-hmm. We'd almost have to build something custom. This is like the, you know, you talk about the dream house. This is like the dream studio. You'd build something that has, you know, like the 15, 20-foot ceilings, like the big natural light and stuff, but you'd almost do it like per room, where you'd have like rooms that could be different styles where you could stage them. And like, if we continue growing our home accessory line, you could like use these rooms to photograph and they could always be changing kind of thing. So you'd have like a living room, a kitchen.
Look, you know my requirement. All I require is a rooftop helipad.
Helipad, I know.
Rooftop helipad.
One of these days,
and a
who knows? We'll see. We'll see
hanger
where
as well.
The hanger, yeah. That would be ideal if we could have like a studio with a helipad and a hanger. That would be like the most epic, like dream studio I could even imagine.
I mean, that was really the only requirement for me when we were looking for we were house hunting.
Yeah.
It's like Becky's like, well, I want this, and this. And I'm just like, room for to land a helicopter. That's it.
But did you want 2 toilets in the primary bathroom?
You know what? It's the thing I just didn't realize I needed.
You didn't know you needed 2 toilets.
Although we've been training ourselves out of that.
Yeah. So a little.
They're not facing each other. Okay, just don't.
You can't see
we're
each
not
other.
Weird like that.
Dome.
Okay, they're around. One's around a corner, so you could talk to one another, but they're in different corners of the bathroom around a wall.
Yeah, you're not locking eyes while you're turtle heading.
Prairie dogging.
Yeah, prairie dogging. You can hear it when it plops out. But. Well, this is a good segue to give like the world's quickest update on the home renovation.
Yes.
Because some people on our main channel on Instagram were asking like, what happened to the bathroom you were working on last year? And like, when are we going to see a house tour and like all this stuff?
Oh yeah, soon. Yeah.
So the bathroom we pretty much finished. We're waiting on glass. There's a bit of a miscommunication with the glass company with the quote. And so we had to finalize that. But we're coming up. The house is not close to being done.
No.
But we are going to be rolling out with a home renovation series this winter. Mm-hmm. First 4 episodes. Once those spaces are done and out, then we're moving on to the second iteration of our home reno project.
It'll probably be like 3 seasons of like with like a 4 episode mini series dropped each time.
Yeah, it's probably going to be like a 3 or 4 episode mini series each time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So probably like 4 times.
Between 12 to 16 episodes all in all, usually like 1 episode per room, basically.
I think it's about 12 episodes will end up being.
Yeah. So
it's like going to be 3 to 4 episodes per seasonal launch of the home
Gotcha.
series. Yeah.
3 to 4 episodes in 3 to 4 drops.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the only way that we can make this manageable because we're doing the work ourselves. Mm-hmm. Chris works full-time, I work full-time. So we're kind of doing it on our spare time. And also we're incredibly
I was literally laying
slow.
tiles, not December 31st, 2021, but December 31st, 2020.
Yeah.
Literally laying tiles at home.
Yes. On January 31st, 2020, we were pretty sure painting the bathroom.
Probably.
Like New Year's Eve. And then we're like, oh, we should probably go look at fireworks.
31st.
December 31st. Yeah, sorry. But yeah, so once this chunk, we'll call it the first season of the home reno series is done, mm-hmm. we're going to be working on the next portion, which is our primary bedroom, bathroom, and closet.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in the process now of like doing all the fun stuff, like picking out the tiles and picking out what the countertop's going to be and the sink is going to be. And we've never really had.
She's picking out all that stuff. She's doing all that stuff. Exciting. She finds it fun.
We've never really had the primary bedroom. Like the primary bedroom. Like everyone talks about, you know, when you're designing your home, like the primary bedroom is like the spot that should be like
the sanctuary.
The sanctuary. And we've never really had that. Like in our first house, we were on an extreme budget. So it was all IKEA, which there's nothing wrong with that, but everything matched in a very small room. And we did what we could with the money that we had, but it was never like a dream bedroom. You know what I mean?
Is this your dream bedroom?
Maybe.
Oh,
I want it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I just want to build out my dream bedroom because we've never really had one.
Mm-hmm.
In Vancouver, our room was so small that we had a queen size bed. Now we had a beautiful bed. And I think, thank you to EQ3 and Sam who worked with us on getting us those products. But the furnishings in the room were beautiful. The bed was beautiful. I love the bedding that they had sent and the end tables. But the room was so small that it was the size of a queen bed with like a foot on either end and you couldn't close the door.
Yes, it was very tight.
Very tight.
Yeah. Again, we talked about how tight our Vancouver apartment was, like less than 500 square feet for the entire apartment.
Less than 400 square feet, actually.
Oh, less than 400. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in that case.
It was like 410, including the patio.
Wow. Okay. Compact living.
It's very small.
Yeah.
And then in our last apartment, there was like carpet on the floor and we couldn't really paint everything. We like did an accent wall, but we were working with what we had left over from like Vancouver. Like we had some old, like tiny side tables that we used in our closet and we didn't want to buy new furniture for the apartment. So we didn't. So it just wasn't really that great. And then we moved in here. We've been here for 2 years and we bought a new bed, but we're still using these like old IKEA side table things that are falling apart.
They literally are falling apart. Like they are like, they're like slanty shanty.
Yeah. The tops like are cracked off.
Yeah.
And there's like, you know, yellow carpet in there and yellow walls and this really weird like wood ceiling, which is like
there's tropical fish hand painted on the tiles in the bathroom.
Definitely has some beach vibes in there.
Yeah. There's like a whitewashed, what's it called? Tray ceiling?
Yeah, it's like a tray ceiling with like a wood paneled with a whitewash.
I think it's whitewashed cedar.
I think so too.
It's very beachy.
It is.
I think the former owners really liked the whole beach vibe thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people actually put that for whatever reason in their bedrooms and bathrooms.
Yeah, I think maybe people want to have, maybe they associate like the beach with like relaxing.
People
vacation.
love the beach, man.
Yeah,
the beach is a great place.
Yeah, it is a great place. The beach isn't quite for me as a theme, but each to their own. But when you look at the house and you look at the living room and you look at, you know, what the kitchen's going to be, and then you go back to the primary suite, it's kind of, there's a miscommunication there. There's a disconnect. It's not the same style. So
it doesn't fit. So
we're going to go all out, I think, in there. I'm very excited. We're going to build some cabinetry. We took a cabinet making course.
We did.
Ken DeCoste. Shout out to Ken DeCoste from NS Builders. Actually now Matera Wood Millwork, I think, is their new company.
Yep. That was very interesting to see his process.
Yes, for sure.
Picked up a few little tips and tricks there.
Little tips. We're gonna lay hardwood in there to match the living room. We're gonna put a bathtub in our.
Well, we're not gonna give it all. We'll give it all away.
Yeah. Okay. So only special.
But we're coming on 50 minutes here now.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're gonna end it. This was supposed to be a short one where we talked about the studio, but I went on a tangent about a primary bathroom bedroom. Surprised? No. Nope. I love interior design. With that said, thank you so much for watching and or listening. If you like the podcast, consider subscribing, maybe give us a little rating.
Rate, review, and subscribe.
Please. Don't take into consideration the swearing when you give us a rating, because this podcast is rated explicit.
Exactly. You know what you're signing up for.
Yeah. You do.
All right. With that said,
see you guys on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.